What are the different uses of AI in academia and beyond? You might look at this image, this comical image, and think, what does this have to do with the different uses of AI in academia? That's a great question. The reality is that we are still learning about different ways that AI can be used to help education. Everything from a creation aid to a personal tutor, and so much more. The idea with the image is that there are actually many different uses for different people and different situations. I'll get back to explaining that image here in a second, but I really want to show you first this video clip from Steve Jobs. This is way back in 1985. So keep that in mind, way back in 1985, where he's talking about this same type of issue.
Whenever we develop a new medium, we generally tend to fall back into our old habits from our old media. As an example, when the television first came of age in America, the first television shows were simply a camera pointed at a radio show. And it took about 20, 30 years for television to really come into its own in the late 1950s. Do you know who Alexander the Great's tutor was for about 14 years? You know, Aristotle. And I read this. I became immensely jealous. And I think I would have enjoyed that a great deal. And through the miracle of the printed page, I can at least read what Aristotle wrote without an intermediary. And maybe if there's a professor, they can add to that, but at least I can go directly to the source material. And that is, of course, the foundation upon which our Western civilization is built. But I can't ask Aristotle a question. I mean, I can, but I won't get an answer. And so my hope is that in our lifetimes, we can make a tool of a new kind, of an interactive kind. And so my hope is someday, when the next Aristotle is alive, we can capture the underlying worldview of that Aristotle in a computer. And someday, some student will be able to not only read the words Aristotle wrote, but ask Aristotle a question and get an answer. And that's what I hope that we can do.
There's two big issues here. There's two big aspects of what Steve Jobs is talking about. The first one talking about that when we have a new medium, so in this case, when we have AI, right, it's like a new medium, that what people tend to do is fall back on the way that they use the previous medium. So the example he had here was that when television came out, what people did is they just reverted back to their old techniques, and that they simply pointed a TV camera at an old radio show. So they were still observing it, they were still treating it in the same way. In the same way, I think that a lot of us in academia are still stuck in the old ways when we're using the old mediums, right? We're still thinking about education and how to implement it, but based off of the previous technology, based off of previous mediums. Now, I'm all for tried and true, right? I'm all for the traditional techniques that work well. Hey, if it works well, we need to continue to use it, but we also need to consider these new technologies. We also need to consider, well, how could we use AI in a different way to enhance education? So we really need to think outside the box. I think we're in that time where we need to really contemplate different ways that we might be able to use it. And so Steve Jobs gives us one example with that.
We can capture the underlying worldview of that Aristotle in a computer. And someday, some student will be able to not only read the words Aristotle wrote, but ask Aristotle a question and get an answer.
Steve Jobs' prophetic words from almost 40 years ago is really something because it's actually coming true right now. Having this type of AI that can have multimedia capabilities is actually within our grasp now, because thanks to the new developments here coming from OpenAI's GPT 4.0, as well as new offerings coming from Google and the way that Microsoft Copilot is implementing it as well. We have all these different developments where we could actually create what Steve Jobs was talking about way back then, having an AI system that actually thinks like Aristotle, answers like Aristotle. We probably don't have audio recordings from back then, but someone that sounds as if they're from that time, that we can definitely do something that could look like Aristotle, look like someone from that time, to make an implementation of this, of using the AI in a really advanced way that's beyond anything that we've done before. Now, the power of this is that now we could have Aristotle that could work like a tutor, that could help a student to learn information one on one. That's very powerful. A one on one interaction with a teacher, that's something that really we haven't been able to do before. But now we can. And we have to think by creating a character like that, that really looks and feels like that character. Well, now we bring in emotional connection. We have enhanced motivation, all sorts of things to make a real experience in that learning. So now we have deep learning that can occur that is really a game changer as far as what we can do with AI within education. So that's one example, but there's actually more to it because again, there's different things that we can come up with. And I really think that we're still at that first level, but we really need to continue to think this through. Now let's look back at our somewhat comical image from the beginning. At first glance, this might seem silly, yet it's actually full of applications of AI that we might not initially realize or value. Here we see a robot walking a real dog. Why even have a dog if the robot is going to walk it, right? That's what many of us might think. Well, most people that have a dog currently work, so they can only walk their dog in the evening. If we all had an AI robot that could do household chores during the day, then the robot could also walk the dog during the day while the people were at work. Think of how much better the dog's everyday experience now could be. Now let's consider the opposite, a human walking a robot dog. At least that's what it looks like. New AI robot dogs can now be used as personal trainers to help people exercise and become healthier. They can serve as companions, talk to explain the exercises to do, and also help to motivate the person to accomplish more. Another powerful new utilization of the AI robot dog is a seeing eye dog. Infused with a multimodal AI, can actually describe the world around them and help the blind person navigate. This can now be done not just through movement, like a real seeing eye dog, but also by vocalizing dangers and other information to help the blind person move around. The only way that we can really improve and develop enhanced ways that we can use AI within education is if we work together. That means that we all have to go in and develop our AI literacy skills so that we can help students. But by developing these AI literacy skills, we can start to think about the AI in different ways. We can start to contemplate what it might be like if we were to do certain things in a different way. By looking at AI through different perspectives, thinking about it in these different ways, we can develop creative solutions. We can think outside the box and come up with different ideas. What I like to call this is the AI Renaissance, right? The AI Renaissance where faculty at all levels can go through and conduct different experiments, can do action research, can use all the different tools that are being developed and really look at different implementations of it, right? But we have to make sure that we're sharing this information. We're not just doing it in isolation. We're commenting, we're discussing, we're expressing what we're doing and seeing what works well, what doesn't work well. What works well in one area might not work as well in another area. Things in chemistry might be different than things in math and things in the humanities. So again, we have to share these ideas, work together, but again, have this renaissance of possibilities where we can learn so much more. If this call to action resonates with you, right? If you see the value of having this renaissance of AI in education, then please share this video with other people. Like it, comment so that we can learn from one another and distribute this information, develop our community here so that we can continue to learn from one another because again, this is only going to escalate, going to have different capabilities and evolve into something more and more. But if we are ahead of it within academia, use it, experiment with it, implement it, and then see the value in different ways, then we can definitely create the best educational experience possible. And remember, learning is for life.